Hey there, my dude. How you doing?
Pretty good, man. How about you?
I'm having a good one. It's pretty damn hot. I'm in the process of trying to move, and I'm playing some Dark Souls. How are you?
I'm pretty good overall. Just, did a debate earlier, made some falafels, just chilling. Yeah,
Were
I
they
hope
vegan
you're...
falafels?
Is there such thing as a non-vegan falafel? I mean, maybe people put,
I,
like,
I,
eggs in them or something.
I have no idea what a falafel even is. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah, so I've got... Oh, whoa, it's made of chickpeas. It's like a Middle Eastern food. It would be racist to not know and like what falafels are.
Fuck. Now I'm racist. You got me. Debate one.
Yep.
Really quick. I want to from what I'm aware of with from you is I was watching Vosh stream once and he was doing a like an AMA thing, and I remember you came in and you ended up getting kicked because you were like going on for a long time. So I don't know, like, do you want to debate veganism? My position is just like veganism's good. It's good to be vegan. I'm in a material situation right now where I'm not capable of being vegan, but I think it would be nice to be in the future because I think it's probably like the morally good position to hold, and I think it's probably like a better lifestyle to have in general. Like that's
Well,
basically my position.
so one or two things. So, firstly, just to characterize the Vosh situation accurately, technically I wasn't kicked. I was muted at his request.
Okay. Yeah, it's been a long time. I don't remember. I watched it when it was live.
That's fine. It's minor, but just for accuracy sake. And yeah, I'll also clear up because I heard you sort of suggest that maybe I'm bad faith or unreasonable or something like this. I actually really don't know who you are or what you do. I mean, I'm just aware that you're some kind of sort of lefty, progressive type streamer, and I just have viewers asking me to talk to you. So that's the extent of it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm down to talk. I mean, were there any topics in particular you wanted to talk about?
Well, yeah, they want me to
or...
talk to you about animal ethics. So, I guess with veganism, this would sort of be my question. Presumably, you hold the view that it's wrong to stab someone in the throat, right?
Unprompted, of course.
Well, to eat them.
To wait to eat a person or to stab them in the throat?
Stabbing them in order to eat them.
Yeah, probably.
Probably?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure Okay, so we're talking about cannibalism here, right?
We are right now.
Sure. So there's a lot of reasons why cannibalism probably isn't okay. I'm pretty sure there's like a shit ton of health reasons why it's not good for a human to eat another human, like prions and shit like that. So there's that. But just morally speaking, I'm a consequentialist with my morals. If we allowed people to eat other people and we encouraged that kind of behavior in our society, it would unquestionably result in bad outcomes that we don't want to have happen. That's why I think it's probably bad to like stab someone in the throat and eat them. Even if you stab them in the throat for self-defense, then you happen to be like, you know what? I kind of wanted to try human meat, and say like cook up a leg and you start chomping down on it. Like even that, I think probably shouldn't be allowed, because you don't want to encourage cannibalism.
So, I'm not yet asking for your reasons for opposing it, I'm just clarifying that you do oppose it. And it sounds like you do. You don't think it's ethical to stab someone in the throat and eat them.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to animals, you will do this, though, right? Presumably you're currently doing this.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is just, what is it that's true of animals that, if true of humans, would cause you to take the same view?
I don't have to see the animal suffering. I can just sort of clear it out of my mind and like eat whatever food I'm enjoying and imagine, oh yeah, this tastes good, and then just kind of like not think about it.
Okay, so if the human were killed out of sight, you wouldn't have a problem with it?
Well, morally or personally, if I was eating the meat.
I'm an anti-realist, I don't see a distinction.
I mean, if I'm not ever going to eat human meat because of a variety of reasons, including the health issues. But if we're talking about in society, if we were to allow people to like kill someone out of sight, well, even then it wouldn't work because somebody's going to be involved. It's going to have an impact on society, right?
So your answer is that even if it were out of sight, you would not do it?
No.
That's not, sorry, no, you wouldn't do it, or no, that's not.
Well,
your answer?
I'm not the one that's doing it. Wait, are we talking about me slaughtering an animal or somebody else doing it?
We're talking about you paying for it.
Oh, so I'm paying for meat from an animal that was slaughtered out of sight, out of mind. I just cook up the meat, I eat it, and I enjoy it, right? That's what we're talking about here?
We're talking about a human right now. So I can go through sort of how we got here. So
I don't know if you want to go down the cannibalism route, though, with this logic here, because I think we could do it a bit more concisely without talking about eating humans. Because there's a lot of reasons why I'm not cool with eating humans. So just kind of like, for one, the health issues, the fact that eating another human would kind of fuck with me a little bit. In the same way that when I think about it, the fact that it's a living animal once, it kind of fucks with me, but probably even more so.
So, to be clear, what we've established so far is that you would not pay someone to stab an animal, or sorry, a human to death so you could eat them. You would
yeah,
you would pay someone to do this to an animal. And I'll also add, just in case, I don't know if you feel on edge talking to me, the idea here isn't a gotcha. You probably haven't thought this through in detail. I just want to make you aware of the issue so you can think as clearly as possible. So that's the goal, okay? So you wouldn't do this with a human. You would do it with an animal. And when I asked what's true of the animal, that if true of the human would cause you to say, yeah, I'd do it, you said the fact that it's out of sight and out of mind. So now I've given you the situation of the killing of a human that occurs out of sight and out of mind when you pay for it. And you would or you wouldn't do that.
Okay, so let's assume it's a world where eating human meat will not harm you in a single way. It's no different than eating like a steak, right? Can we do that for the sake of argument?
No, we're not adding other features yet. Right now, we're just looking at...
But with the example that you're giving me right now, there's already the added feature of I wouldn't want to eat human meat in the first place.
Well, what we established was you wouldn't pay someone to kill and eat a human. You would pay someone to kill and eat an animal. And the thing true of animals that, if true of humans, would cause you to say you would do that is the fact that it's out of sight and out of mind. So the question is, if it were out of sight and out of mind with a human, would you do it? Okay,
so the reason why I'm fine with eating animal meat is because I'm able to just go to the store, buy some meat. Well, I don't...
Not to be rude, but can you answer that?
Why is it okay? Why would I do it with an animal but not a human?
Not quite. That was the prior question. So we said, first of all, would you do it with a human? No.
No.
Would you do it with an animal? Yes. What's true of the animal that, if true of the human, would cause you to say you would do it? The fact that it's out of sight and out of mind. Then the question is, if it were out of sight and out of mind, would you do this with a human? That's the question.
Okay. What is true of the animal that makes it so I'm willing to do it, but not with a human? Okay.
That's not the question.
Or what would be true of the animal? Wait, then why would I do it with a human?
Question. That's the prior question. So the prior,
okay, reiterate the final question for me.
The final question is, if it were out of sight and out of mind with the human, would you do it?
No.
Okay, so that's a logical contradiction, because what you said was that the thing that would have to be changed in order for you to do it is that it would be out of sight and out of mind. I made that change, and you still said you wouldn't do it. So it is and it isn't the case that if it were out of sight and out of mind, you would do it.
Well, no, the first example that I came up with was the fact that I was able to put it to back in my mind that the animal was like alive once and it was slaughtered and murdered. That was the first example that I thought of. There's a variety of reasons why I'm fine with it with animals and not with humans. Do you want me to like go over the rest of them? And we can like follow the logic through that?
If you want to concede that this first answer you gave produced a contradiction and you want to give a more nuanced answer with more components to it, sure. But we can agree this first one didn't work out, though, right?
Hold on. So the reason why... So what we're basically getting here, or getting to here, is it moral to kill animals as compared to humans? Is it less moral or is it more moral? That's the root of this.
You're kind of going to questions that aren't directly what I'm asking. It's not staying.
But they're still really relevant. The problem is they're very loaded questions that you're asking me.
Well, wait, no, I don't see how the question is loaded.
Well, because you're making the assumption that I already see animals or you're leading at least into it. It's a leading question. Sorry, you're leading into the morality of killing animals, like the ethics there, and I just kind of want to get to the root of it. Without line of questioning.
Well, sorry, the line of questioning is designed to really tease out the problem on your view, which is why I'm sticking to it, right? So we asked, is it okay? Would you pay someone to stab a human to death so you could eat them? No. If it were an animal, would you do it? Yes. what's true of the animal that, if true of the human, would cause you to say you do it, the fact that it's out of sight and out of mind. If it were out of sight and out of mind to kill a human, would you do it? No. Then we get a logical contradiction. Now, if you want to grant that that position yielded a logical contradiction, and then reformulate your answer to the prior question about what would have to be true of the human that's currently true of the animal in order to justify that kind of action, then that would be fine. But it's got to start with an acknowledgement that that first answer produced a contradiction. I would consider it bad faith to not acknowledge that.
Okay, so the difference here is that one is a human, one is an animal. We have to make the argument first.
You're just going to the
whether or not
difference.
it's the same.
You're not acknowledging the contradiction.
But you're loading it up. That's why you see it as a contradiction, though.
No, I see it as a contradiction because it's P and not P, which is just a contradiction in a standard formal logic.
Okay,
system.
so let's make a comparison here. Let's say that that you ask me. Let's say I ask you, do you think it's okay to kill somebody in self-defense?
But you're just trying to avoid the question.
No, I'm not avoiding any questions. I'm asking you right now. Do you think it is okay to kill somebody in self-defense?
Sorry, I'm willing to entertain your questions after. I'm not willing to let you avoid the questions that I'm asking. If you just say you're not willing to answer my questions, we don't have to continue. But if we continue, I will continue asking the questions that I'm asking until I get clear answers, and then you may ask your questions after.
All right, do your question.
Okay, so we asked, is it ethical to pay someone to stab a human so you can eat them? No. Is it ethical with an animal? Or would you do it with an animal? Yes, right. What's true of the animal that, if true of the human, would cause you to say that you do it? It's the fact that it's out of sight and out of mind. If it were out of sight and out of mind when you pay someone to kill a human, would you do it? No. So we get a logical contradiction that it is and is not the case that if it were out of sight and out of mind, you'd do this with a human. So I'm asking
is the argument that you are leading into here that I'm being dishonest for my reasons? Why I'm okay with it?
Now, that is a slight derail, but I'll just answer that for a second because it sounds like you think I might view you as dishonest. No, I don't think you're being dishonest. I think you just haven't thought it through. But I think that you might not be used to philosophical conversations, so you might not be able to
I want to be very clear
here.
here. I haven't thought it through. I'm literally just telling you the reason why I eat meat. I don't put a big philosophical, I don't have like a really strong philosophical outlook on this. I just say, it's probably good to be vegan. I like animals. I think animals probably deserve rights. I don't like the fact they get slaughtered. I see videos of like the animals in the slaughterhouses and the kind of thing in the pictures and the things they do, and it makes my stomach churn. It looks terrible. But then later that day, I've forgotten about it. It's in the back of my mind, if anything, and I go and I get a big red juicy steak from the store. And I end up making, well, I don't actually, but I get a big red juicy steak cooked for me, or I get one or whatever. Oh yeah, and it's sort of in the back of my mind. Like I don't disagree with the outcome that morally, like the end game outcome that we're going to here. The problem is, I feel like the questions that you've asked are kind of leading, right? Because I gave one reason why I'm not okay, or I gave one reason why I'm okay with like eating animal meat and like paying somebody you said to kill, but I mean it's already been killed, right? I guess you're financially supporting them, and then just keeping it in the back of my mind. But that's just like one reason. Another big reason is like, if we encourage this in society, then
but what you're doing is you're trying to add more reasons now without acknowledging that your initial answer to the question produced a contradiction. I said, what would have to be what's true of the one that, if true of the other, would cause you to say you do this? You answered that, and the answer produced a contradiction. If you just acknowledge that answer produced a contradiction, then I'm happy to have you revisit the prior question to give a more detailed answer.
So does it produce a contradiction that I see paying someone to kill a human, and it's just out of sight, out of mind? I don't even know how you would do that, because you have to actively pay someone to do that while you're just going to the store and buying meat from an already dead animal and just supporting them. So it'd be more, if we want to make a more accurate comparison, maybe I'm buying a product that somebody died to make, like in a sweatshop or something. Can we make that like as a more accurate comparison?
I don't think you're really tracking the line of questioning, which I really don't mean to be rude. People get so annoyed when I say that, but I just don't know what to do except be honest. I don't think you're following the line of questioning. Do you understand what
the line of questioning is? Extremely leading, though.
Do you understand what a logical contradiction is, technically speaking?
I understand what a logical contradiction is, yes.
Okay.
What I'll admit is that I am morally inconsistent. That is what I've said on this topic a lot. That I say it's good to be vegan and that you should be vegan. Yet I have not currently I'm completely fine admitting when I have like faults like that, and I promise you that's not what's happening here. Like I would admit it if I thought this is a logical contradiction. I don't think it is, because I do not think that there is a moral equivalency between paying someone for meat that you bought at the store and thinking, well, back in my mind, I'm not even thinking about this used to be an animal, and paying someone to kill a person.
Do you understand what a logical contradiction is, technically speaking? Like, if I asked you to tell me what a contradiction is with respect to formal logic, would you be able to answer that?
Probably not in the most articulate way, but I more or less understand what you mean by that.
Well,
and the problem is that I don't think you can come to the conclusion that's a logical contradiction with the way the question is framed and with the two things that are being compared.
So let's just clarify that we're sharing an understanding of what a logical contradiction is. What do you think a logical contradiction is?
Okay, I think a logical contradiction is when one has a thought process on how one ought to come to a conclusion about a particular topic, but then on another situation, their line of logic of how they come to a conclusion on it is different or contradicts it, and that's more or less what a logical contradiction is. I could probably articulate it better if I thought about it for a while, but yeah.
Now, you used contradiction in your definition of contradiction.
Well, to contradict is to have a to say one thing and to mean another, or for have something to not really line up, right?
Not quite. So now that's a kind of like informal sort of understanding of what a contradiction is that you might have like in a conversation. In logic, it means something really specific, though. So when you're talking about formal logic, a contradiction is going to be a statement that if we write it out, it comes out false under all truth values for the variables in question. So a statement like P and not P is a contradiction, right? If we, regardless of what the truth values are for P, the statement comes out false. So any statement of the form P and not P will be a contradiction, where P is a proposition. Do you understand what a proposition is?
Do you have like some kind of philosophy degree or something? I'm curious.
No, I have no philosophy degree.
Okay, yeah, I really do hate philosophical discussions because it feels so.
It's really helpful. Let me draw a bridge for you to like you debate the trans stuff, right?
Yeah, I do.
You know, I hypocrite.
Yeah, I know I hypocrite.
I finally got that guy to concede that trans people don't have to have false beliefs. Took 3 debates, right? Philosophy was helpful in doing that. It's useful.
Wait, what was his belief? Sorry.
Well, we're going a bit off topic, but this is just kind of to humor you. So, I hypocrite takes the view that trans people are delusional, which I disagree with. I take delusion to be a false belief that's maintained despite clear evidence to the contrary. Like if you think you're a fire hydrant or an attack helicopter, and it's pretty clear we show to you that's false, and you continue believing it, that would be a delusion. Surely you agree with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so now I took 3 debates, and he only conceded in DMs after the fact. But I tried to get him to spell out what false belief he thinks someone has to hold in virtue of being trans. And of course there's not one. A trans person could have all the same beliefs as you or me, right? There's no reason to think they'd have to have a false belief. So now what he's done, he's finally acknowledged that they don't have to have a persistent false belief. But now his position is that delusion doesn't require persistent false beliefs. But the point I was getting at is just that philosophy can help you like chug through those situations. It's useful for the kind of stuff you do, like debating.
Yeah. Well, there's some basic philosophical concepts that I do bring up because they're relevant to what I discussed, but broader, like hardcore philosophy, like talking about logical contradictions and whatnot, is really, really boring to me because I find that it's not very useful to know when trying to figure out why people do what they do. A lot of people do what they do, not because they're like super logical beings, logic bros like Destiny or whatever, but they're very emotional with their decisions, right? This is one thing that I really want to make clear right now. My position on veganism and the ethics of like eating animals is based in emotion, not logic. I didn't like logically think through my belief on this. I just kind of like, I can just sort of not really think about the fact that this is an animal, and I enjoy it. Look, it tastes good. I don't think about it. If I see a video of some animals at a farm, it makes me feel bad. I should probably become vegan at some point. That's more or less like the thought process that I went through. I haven't there's been no philosophical rigor that I've looked at my viewpoint on this with. It's a very emotional thing.
Right.
And this is how most people...
Which is why I'm not sitting here going hard on you. I assume that you haven't really given the topic much thought. That's fine. But
Yeah, I mean,
what you said at one point, though, is that your position doesn't contain a contradiction, right? And
I don't think that morally it, or through my moral system, it doesn't. No.
Okay, now I think that the statements that you gave actually do result in a logical contradiction, and I could spell it out for you if you want.
Okay.
And okay, so what you said is that the thing true of animals, that if true of humans, would cause you to take the same attitude towards them, where it's okay to, stab them and eat them, is it being out of sight and out of mind. But then when I gave the example of a human where killing them is out of sight and out of mind when you pay for it, you said you wouldn't do it. So we get a contradiction. We get P and not P. It is the case and it's not the case that if it's out of sight and out of mind, you would support it.
So the out of sight, out of mind comment was about why it doesn't bother me to do it, right? That wasn't even getting into the morals behind it. Like, of course, I don't think that if something is done out of sight, out of mind, that it's good now or it's okay now. That's just more of like a cope for me. Like, okay, I don't really have to think about the fact that this was like a living animal. Like, this could have been. I've seen cows and whatnot before. They're super cute. If I saw one get butchered in front of me, no way I would eat the meat they handed me. It being out of sight, out of mind thing is a cope, not really like a moral reason for why I think it's okay.
So you don't actually hold the view that the thing that's true of animals, that if it were true of humans, would cause you to be okay with killing them, is the fact that the killing is out of sight and out of mind.
No, that was just the reason that I brought up, or that's when you asked me, why am I okay with it when it's an animal, not with a human? That was the first example I came up with, because that's like a coping mechanism for why I'm cool eating animals. When I love animals, right? But I'm still fine eating them, right?
It sounds like it's not actually the reason, though, because when we apply it to humans, the result is actually something you're not comfortable with, right? It would be like if I said, why do you wear, these shoes and not those shoes? And you're like, oh, well, it's the fact that they're red. And I say, okay, if those others were red, would you wear them? And you say, no. It's like, okay, wait, well, the fact that they're red obviously wasn't the thing that's causing it, right?
Well, what if my reasons were they're red, they don't fit, they're kind of soggy and wet? Like, if that was the reason I gave and said, okay, so what if or they're not red or whatever?
Yep.
So, okay, so what if those soggy, non-fitting shoes are red? Do you admit that you would wear them? I'm like, well, no, because there's other shit. I mean, I guess if they were red, then that would be help.
Right. Now that's fine. But if initially what you said was the difference is just the fact that they're red, and then you didn't accept wearing the other shoes if they were red.
But I never said the only difference was that they're red. It was just the first example I came up with.
Well, then I'm going to attribute it to you not fully appreciating that the question was kind of technical, but that is what you said. But if it was down to not appreciating the question, that's completely fine. So
okay. Do you want to would it help if I brought up like a list of reasons why I don't think it's probably equivalent?
No, it's not reasons why it's not equivalent, because I don't need equivalence. I don't hold the view that it's equivalent, right? If I have to kill you or a cow, 100% I'm killing the cow. I don't think it's equivalent, right? I just think that both are sufficiently wrong that you shouldn't do it. In the same way, I don't think $2 and $1 are the same amount of money, but they're both enough to buy a can of Coke. Well, maybe $1, but you get the idea. So what I'd like you to try to answer, to the best of your ability right now, if you have to go think about it more, maybe we can pick up some other time. But what I'd like you to try to answer is just, what is it that's true of the animal that, if true of the human, would cause you to say, yeah, I would support paying for this human to be, stabbed and killed? So if it's a list of factors, that's fine.
If this is true, it's more so if this was true of a human that is true of an animal. Can we kind of like do it the other way around a little bit to how it would be okay if we did it to a human?
I just want to be clear. There's got to be some difference in what's true of them. Something that what's true can be the absence of something, right? So if you're looking at it the other way around, like I don't think that'll make a problem. I'll have to see how you answer. But the idea is just there's different things true of humans and animals, and some of those things, whatever they may be on your view, once we switch them over in the human case, we're going to reach a being that you'll say you would kill. So I'm just trying to understand, to the best of your understanding, having not really thought through the topic in detail, what you think those things would be. The things that are true of an animal, that if true of a human, would cause you to say, yeah, it's fine to, pay someone to stab them.
True of an animal. So when you kill an animal, unless it's the property of somebody else and you're doing it and it's against the law, I mean, that in that case it's just property damage. there isn't really a demonstrable negative effect on society, socially speaking, that you would see if you were just allowed to kill humans. It's like go around just like slit somebody's throat. This doesn't see if that was true of humans or true of other. Hard to word. That seems to be like the main reason.
Could I write that? You can give more. That's totally fine. But can I write that one down as something like social consequences, or is that not precise enough?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, I'll get out my notepad doc too.
Okay, so social consequences. Okay, now, is there anything more right now on your mind than the social consequences, or do you think that's the extent of it?
I mean, I would have to think about it for a while. What else? So this is what would have to be true of an animal to make it so that I wouldn't be okay with it.
What's true of the animal that, if true of the human, would cause you to say, yeah, I'd be fine, paying someone to just stab them to death so I can eat them.
Okay. Here, hold on. I'm going to see how I can word this.
Sure. I also think that you seem to be engaging in very good faith. I've had some bad experiences with a few lefties like Vosh, but a few good experiences. I had a good chat with Mike from PA. Destiny, fairly reasonable. So yeah, I appreciate the good faith.
Thanks, my dude. I try my best to be good faith, but I am not very new. I'm still pretty new to the debate, debate lord political scene. So yeah. I learn more shit every day. This is actually probably going to branch off into a whole other topic when I bring this up, but I do want to talk about it.
Sure.
Some arbitrary threshold that we set for the intelligence of a being, and whether or not we're cool with like killing this thing, or if eating it would like do something to us. Because when you're sitting there eating that meat, you're like, God, this thing was this was basically like a person. Like if aliens came to Earth and they were more or less as intelligent as humans, but we found out their meat tasted really good, most people probably wouldn't be okay eating the alien meat.
So would it be fair for me to write that one down as intelligence threshold?
Yeah, an arbitrary intelligence threshold, because I don't know where it would start or begin. I couldn't.
Yeah, I'm not gonna force you to dial it in. We know what we need to know about it, which is cows are below it and humans are above it.
Yeah, but I think like dolphins, for example, are definitely above it. Like I'm not cool with killing dolphins. Okay. I would never eat dolphin meat.
We know a bit more about it now. But either way, the point is just that I'm not going to try to force you to dial it into a T or give me an IQ number or something like that. The idea is just some intelligence threshold somewhere in between cows and dolphins.
Mm-hmm. And this intelligence threshold, I don't think basically any human falls below. Like even if you're like some severe mental disability, I don't think you would fall below it.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I've had people bring up like, I don't think you would do this, but I've had people say, oh, then what if a human was like really mentally disabled? Would you be fine killing them? And I'd be like, well, no, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that you'll be able to make that kind of point there, but we can deal with that after. Is there anything else to it than the intelligence threshold and the social consequences, as far as you can think right now?
Let me think for a second. After this, I'll probably put more thought into it as well, because I do like to think about this kind of stuff while I do stuff.
I thought you hated philosophy. What happened to that, Xander?
Well, I don't like discussing it with other people, but I sometimes like to think about it. Like, I think my like Babby's first introduction to, I guess you could say, philosophy was when Destiny debated incest, and it was like, okay, well, why is incest wrong? And every example people kept listing were things that had nothing to do with incest, and I was like, wow, this is actually a pretty interesting discussion. Yeah. But besides that, I find it's not really fun for me to talk about, but it's neat to think about sometimes.
If you want to, I don't know if you care enough about it, but if you want to read about that, it's got to do with a topic called moral dumbfounding in psychology. It's like, I don't know much about this really, but there's certain things that people have it's clear intuitions against, and there seem to be like evolutionary explanations why we might have those kind of intuitions, but when you actually ask people to rationalize why they're against the thing, they just fail completely. They get incensed, etc. And incest, non-procreative incest, is kind of like a hallmark example of like a moral dumbfounding case. But yeah, sorry, what other factors are there that, if you can think of any right now?
Let's see. I might not be able to, but I'll think for a minute. What else would have to be true of animals that would make it so I wouldn't be okay with giving somebody money to kill them?
Sorry, not quite. What is true of animals that, if true of humans, would cause you to say it is okay? Oh, that it's okay to kill. Okay, sorry. It's really complicated. Okay, so what is true of animals that if it was true of humans, I would be cool with it? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'd have to think of that one for a little bit, for like a while. I guess we can go off of these two if you want, and I'll like think more on another one for the future. Okay, so in order to remove these two factors from humans, we're just going to say, so first of all, there's no social consequences. Let's say that it happens somewhere like on a moon colony and people aren't made aware of it, so no one's told it's happening. So no social consequences. And we're going to say that it's people who are disabled to a point that you can't point to any way in which a cow has lower cognitive performance than them. We're just talking about people who can solve basic puzzles. They don't really have much language. They seem to enjoy being around their loved ones. Someone who's fairly disabled.
Okay, so more or less like the brain of a cow in a human's body.
Not
almost.
Quite. Just the brain of someone who has...
Or cognitively speaking.
Yeah, someone who's not displaying intelligence to any greater degree. Because you said it was specifically about intelligence. We didn't deal with anything else, like maybe their emotional capacity or something like this. So it's not literally a cow's brain, but yeah, equal with respect to intelligence.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, at that point, I think it would probably be fine.
So you would support a holocaust of disabled people on a moon colony?
I mean, yeah, if they were basic... Well, obviously, I don't support it for animals, but I mean, if it turned out their human meat was really good, had no health problems, and I was like, yeah, I want some of that human meat, then yeah, maybe.
Okay, now, well, the health problems and stuff, those are further factors.
That's extringent. That's extringent from, like, the moral part. We're talking about the moral stuff here.
I mean, you can name those things, too, if you want. But, yeah, so... Now, if you honestly hold the view that it's ethical to Holocaust disabled people on a moon colony, I don't really have anything further to say. I think that's a reductio on your view. But if you don't hold that, then we could talk more, or you could think more about it. But that's where that position would lead.
Yeah, I mean, like, in this scenario, if this is true of humans, and you had like a moon colony far away, you wouldn't even think about it. You would just go to the store, just like you do now, and pick up a slab of human meat. There were no health consequences whatsoever for eating it. It was super good, just like a steak or whatever. You just picked it up, you took it to the store, and you know, these humans, like, honestly, would probably be more, in my moral system, more moral than, like, buying my computer parts. I'm pretty sure most of them were made from, like, isn't lithium in computers? There's, like, tons of people die mining lithium, right? Like, there's probably more human cruelty that goes into my computer that I'm using right now than would in this, like, theoretical situation. So, of course, if I want to be morally consistent, I would be fine with this.
That's a further point, which there's other issues with. But just to be clear, the experience of these people is the same as, for example, an experience of a disabled person who is slaughtered in Auschwitz.
I don't think that's comparable. Because
Why?
people who would be, in this scenario, they would be being farmed and, like, reproduced for the sole purpose of producing meat. In the case of Auschwitz, it was a politically motivated genocide based around a severe hatred pushed by propaganda for people with mental disabilities.
You think that the victims notice a difference in why it's happening?
No, but I think consequentially there's a big difference. I don't think that, like, if we're talking about a moon colony, like, are we shipping disabled people to the moon, or is there
confusion.
like...
There's confusion. Okay. I'm not talking about the whole situation being equal. I was just talking about their experience. So, for example, if you were just blindfolded and given the experience of one of these disabled people and a disabled person who was slaughtered by Hitler, you wouldn't know which is which. This is what you'd be saying is okay.
Would I be... Wait, could you repeat that?
Yeah, so the disabled people who are being slaughtered on the moon colony and the disabled people who are slaughtered in Auschwitz, if we just blindfold you so you can't see any distinguishing features of the camp that you're in, you would not be able to actually tell the difference.
I mean, except for people speaking German around, probably not, no.
Right, so now, I take it, again, like, I think we get into weird positions when we try to defend this, and often once we get there, we want to just back off them because they seem crazy. So I'm not going to try to, like, skewer you to this position if you don't like it. But I take it that as, like, a strong leftist who's, like, very pro, human rights and all this, recreating the same subjective experience as was created in Auschwitz is surely wrong on your view, right? Surely that's a bad thing.
Even the problem is, though, even in this theoretical that we're talking about here, I made it very clear that the arbitrary line where I draw this is basically at a point where like the people who would be being farmed on this moon base would be more or less like not even having the brain of a human. Like it would have to be like a really low bar. I think dolphins are above the bar.
We're talking about people who are disabled to a significant degree. Yeah.
And I think dogs are above the bar too. Like basically any dog.
You can't. What I don't want you to try to do is try to make the move that they have a mind that no human has. There are disabled people who are like this, right? We're talking about someone who you
really
can't,
like less cognitive ability than like a dog.
Yeah, someone who you can't show is able to perform tasks or do any intelligent behavior above what, well, we were working with cows, but above what a cow can do.
So are we talking like puzzle solving, like some level of social engagement?
Yeah,
like wanting to be around loved ones and whatnot?
We're talking like, we're talking some pretty, like, we're talking someone who can solve basic puzzles, who can experience well-being and suffering, seems to enjoy being around their family and loved ones, can't engage in like complex, discussion or anything like this. We're talking about someone who's fairly disabled. Yeah.
Wait, birds do that though. Birds are capable of using sticks as tools and being around their babies and like loved ones. That's like a really low bar.
I'm not sure what the relevance is. All I'm doing is I'm spelling out the kind of being we're talking about, right? We're talking about someone who's severely disabled.
Okay, but I don't think that there is anybody who is at this low of a bar where they're basically not even human anymore in their head, that were like exterminated at Auschwitz.
Why do you keep saying not human? We're just talking about a human.
Because I think humanity extends beyond just your physical being of being like a Homo sapien. I think there's more to like humanity than just like our physical being.
When we're talking about their mind, though, we're talking about someone who is not displaying intelligent behavior to a greater degree than a cow. So someone who's severely disabled.
Like, at that, I don't think anybody who is on that level was exterminated during Auschwitz, so I don't know how these are comparable.
Sorry, just to be clear, what's the argument for that?
So where you led to was, so it seems like you would be fine with an indistinguishable scenario where this moon colony would be basically like Auschwitz, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference if you were like blindfolded. The same amount of slaughter and the same kind of slaughter is still happening. And the argument that I'm making is, one, the arbitrary threshold that I set for how low of a cognitive ability that a person would have to be at for me to be okay with killing them is literally below that of like dogs and dolphins, right? Like pretty fucking low. So I don't think there are any humans that were at that level that were exterminated during Auschwitz, unless it was like somebody in like a vegetative state or something like that, that I could theoretically like agree with that. Like, okay, I mean, at that point, like, we agree to like pull the plug on people like that, right? We're fine with putting people out of their misery that are like that.
So the move you want to try to make is to try to make the empirical claim that there is no human who has a cognitive ability below a cow. You want to try to take that position.
It's possible that that's happened, but I'm not aware of any scenarios like that. Someone not below a cow, below that of like a dog or a dolphin.
Let me give you an example of someone who's fairly disabled. Okay. What channel would you like me to put this in?
You can just DM me.
Okay. So here's Bree, for example. Would you Holocaust Bree?
Hold on, let me see. Let's see.
I'll also throw that in your chat here. That's not Bree. That's Bree's mom. And this is further than we need to go, right? A cow is probably a good bit above this. But yeah, you can absolutely find people who they're not displaying intelligent behavior above the level of a cow. This is someone who's well below. There's examples of people who are, just around that level.
What examples did we give before, like being willing to being interested in being around like loved ones? That was an example. Being able to like have basic understanding of tools. Is she capable of like using utensils or no?
I don't know how basic a cow's understanding of tools are.
I think a cow. I think I've heard of a cow like being able to flip the hatch in like a door, and I think that's about as extensive as it gets. I'm not very like learned on the ability of cows in terms of their cognition and their puzzle solving skills.
So the question though is, say that we had a holocaust of people like Bree and it were, out of sight somewhere. Would you actually honestly support that? Is that the view you're taking?
Whether or not I'd probably speak out against it, just as I do now against the meat industry. But in terms of support it,
yeah.
what do you what do you mean by support? Like, just be fun, like
pay for
speak out against it, but still kind of like buy meat from it sometimes? Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Okay. Now
in a world where I'd actually like buy that meat. Yeah.
Now I would take that as a reductio on your view. If you would support the Holocaust of mentally disabled people, yeah, I think that we just have fundamentally different values, and I think that'll be sufficient for a lot of people to see that the value system you're advocating is insane.
I mean, this is just the value system that if you drilled down on like the majority of people in society, where you would end up, most people eat meat.
That's an empirical claim.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I don't know how you would defend a claim like that, but that's also just appealing to the masses. So
yes, it is, because like having a really strong philosophical rigor doesn't matter to most people. What I talk about and I try to understand is the reasoning of most people, and it's not going to be a super philosophically rigorous understanding of morality and why it's okay to kill animals and why it's okay to support the killing of humans. Like, it's going to be more emotional.
Now, whether the empirical claim that people would support holocausting the disabled is true, first of all, I don't know how you'd establish that, but that's a side question, right? My point is simply that if you accept that, if you think that it's ethical to holocaust people like Brie, right, as long as it happens out of sight, we just have fundamentally different values. I wouldn't actually have anything further to say at that point. I would just treat that as reductio and allow people to determine for themselves if they agree with the value system that you're promoting in order to make sense of not being vegan.
Can we expand further into that, into why, like what do you mean by like support?
We're just talking about paying for it to happen. Paying someone to kill people like this.
Do you want to talk more about like pragmatism, like what you mean by paying for something to happen, like supporting a particular industry, or to what degree you're supporting that industry by paying for it?
We're just talking about the same way that you support what's happening to animals currently.
Yeah, so literally right now, I am supporting the exploitation and the death of people by using the computer that I paid for, that was made using parts that were mined and constructed by people that I'm pretty sure are basically slaves. Like lithium miners, or are they not enslaved? I may be wrong, but I'm not super duper aware. I'm literally engaging in more or less like benefiting financially from basically a Holocaust as we speak. This isn't like a super hot take. Everyone who's watching this stream right now is doing the same. So yeah. Like, it's nothing special. Like, there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. We're all kind of doing that. The question here is, morally, are we okay with it? And no, morally, I'm not okay with it.
Wait,
would I consume the product? Probably.
1 second. Now, just to be clear, at this point, we've departed from the debate topic. The debate has ended, right? We're talking about something else now, which is fine. We can talk about it. But with respect to the vegan position, the way that you make sense of not being a vegan is by saying that you would Holocaust the disabled if it were out of sight and out of mind. Just to be clear, that is the position that you're accepting.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you say that there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, but you also say that you're a consequentialist, did you actually have an argument that shows negative utility for all commodity purchases?
Like, are we arguing socialism now?
Well, I don't know about socialism as a whole. I'm just talking about the one claim you made, that all consumption under capitalism is unethical, combined with the other claim you made, that you're a consequentialist, right? Unethical to a consequentialist means negative utility. So I would expect you to have an argument that shows that all commodity purchases generate negative utility.
So I'm not going to say all of them do, because I mean, there's like,
well, then
there's ethical. There is some level of ethical consumption that you can reach, but more or less every single facet of your life you benefit from some level of unethical production.
Do you think that buying from a sweatshop in Indonesia is unethical?
Yeah.
Okay, and what's the argument that generates negative utility?
Because my goal is to maximize like happiness, like human happiness generally.
I understand that your goal is to maximize happiness, but that's not an argument for why negative utility is generated by buying from the sweatshop in Indonesia. what's the argument?
Because the people who are forced to work from that sweatshop, you are supporting those that are like putting them to work. Same way as when you buy meat from the meat industry.
You think that your purchase of the sweatshop produced clothing actually causes utility to go down?
In my end goal, yes, because you're paying the people who are holding them there and forcing them to make clothes and make products for money.
So you think that those people, and just I'll just for the record say I don't really have a strong political view on capitalism or socialism. I'm just sort of like an incrementalist. I'm for preserving changes in either direction that seem to generate good outcomes. But just to deal with what you said, you actually claim that utility would be higher if you didn't buy from the sweatshop. Why would we think that utility would be higher if those people were forced into shittier work for lower pay?
Because I don't think it just has to be like things continue to be the way they are, except now they aren't working in a sweatshop anymore. I think that trying to get rid of sweatshops while also bringing about worker-owned means of production is probably a better outcome.
But wait, why is it, what I'm trying to understand is why buying from the sweatshop actually lowers utility. That's what it means to say that it's unethical to a utilitarian, is that its negative utility is generated by the action. Right?
Am I utilitarian, though?
We said you're a consequentialist. I just take that to be...
Does that... I don't know if that necessarily means I'm a utilitarian. I'm not sure.
Oh,
so can you describe to me what utilitarianism is really fast? Like,
yeah,
I'm curious, you know?
There's two general forms, hedonic utilitarianism and preference utilitarianism. And the idea is that we either want to maximize hedonic states like pleasure, minimize states like suffering, or if you're a preference utilitarian, you want to maximize preference satisfaction. So I took hedonic utilitarianism to be probably what you were referring to when you said you're a consequentialist. Do you take
that's more or less realistic. I try to maximize human happiness and minimize suffering.
Right. So what is the argument that suffering increases when you buy the sweatshop clothing? Right? Because my view is it's not at all clear to me that things would be better if you didn't buy it. Right? It seems like, although I will gladly agree with you that the conditions in other countries are suboptimal, if you're talking about defunding it, you know, you're just talking, people work the best jobs they have access to, right? As shitty as some of these jobs may be. You're just
not
talking,
always.
Ooh, you think
there's like full-on slavery going on, like in many places in the world. Like they aren't working there by choice.
Well, wait a second. Right now, we're just talking about buying from the sweatshop.
I'm pretty sure there are sweatshops that are funded entirely by like human trafficking. Are there not?
If you had well, wait, that's a slight change of topic. If you had some argument or some evidence to show that a particular purchase is somehow supporting slavery, that might be a separate thing. But when we talk about buying from a sweatshop in general, you took the view that that's unethical. Are you not taking that view anymore?
No, I still have that view, that it's unethical to buy from a sweatshop that employs people in harsh working conditions and doesn't really pay them much.
Now, let me try to offer a distinction here that might be important. That condition is suboptimal, but there's a distinction between whether the condition is suboptimal and whether your action is actually unethical when you support the condition. Because it can be that the alternative is even more suboptimal, right? So it's like, great, yeah, none of us are happy about a fucking sweatshop, obviously. Any of us can watch a fucking documentary about this and go, that sucks. But the alternative is these people are just going to be in an even worse situation. They're going to be working some shittier job. They're going to be making less money, right? That's not...
It's possible. But it could also be that they're kept there, like, against their will. Like, there's a lot of human trafficking in that industry for producing products.
Well, wait.
It's cheaper.
If you want to show that a particular sweatshop uses slave labor, that's one thing. But you said again that buying from sweatshops categorically is immoral, right?
The one example that I brought up was my computer, and I'm pretty sure like the lithium is mined is like basically mined by slaves. That's the example I brought up.
One second. The example that I asked you about was buying from a sweatshop. So I don't want to cascade all over the place between a million.
Okay, because I think you moved into the sweatshop argument from me talking about my computer and like electronics.
Well, I mean, I don't remember the exact fucking sequence, but all I know is that you made a claim that buying from sweatshops is unethical. right?
Okay.
And I'm trying to make a distinction between whether the conditions in the sweatshop are suboptimal and whether buying from it is suboptimal, right? Like, this isn't some, like, anti-leftist position here, right? You can be a leftist and hold a view like this.
No, I agree that it's possible the conditions outside of the sweatshop, if were they not a part of it, could be worse. So maybe technically by buying products from the sweatshop, you are actually helping them continue to be in a marginally better position they would be otherwise. But that seems to be a pretty hyper-specific example. I mean, it's very possible that that's not the case. I mean,
this is actually, unless you think that most commodity purchases are slavery, this is going to apply to, like, quite a lot of commodity purchases, right? So here's my thing, okay? It's been a long time since I read any Marx, and I didn't read Marx in any detail, so I don't know.
I've never read any Marx and Muriocha. So yeah, you got more, you know more about it than I do.
No, I know very little about political theory. It's not something I spend much time on. Really, like, I just came for the vegan conversation, but I don't want to, just dip out on you if there's something you wanted to talk about after we finish that conversation. So I take the unethical consumption thing to. I assume that what's being referred to is some kind of Marxist notion of exploitation. Now, I don't know that quote actually came from Marx. No exploitation, no ethical consumption under capitalism. I don't think that quote actually comes from Marx. But I take it that what they're typically referring to there, someone who makes that quote and has, kind of like a general understanding of the philosophy, the political philosophy there, they're usually saying something like that wage labor is exploitation, right? And the exploitation there is not a utilitarian notion. So you get a weird kind of problem when you say that it's all unethical, but you're not using that notion where it's unethical because it meets the Marxist standard of exploitation, which, by the way, I don't think Marx actually used it in a normative way. I think he used it in a descriptive way, but that's beside the point. So when you say it's unethical, all consumption under capitalism, but you also grant that it's not clear that all consumption under capitalism generates negative utility, we get a contradiction. Now, that's not to say that you have to be pro-capitalism, right? I'm not sitting here as a pro-capitalist. I'm sure that we see similar problems here. I'm sure we understand that the profit motive isn't concerned with, things like the environment, that, unconstrained profit seeking is going to produce suffering for anyone, for the, a range of people. We don't need to go into the details. I'm sure you talk about this shit all the time if you're like a lefty streamer guy. So I'm sure we largely agree there's problems with capitalism. Nothing about what I'm saying entails that you have to support capitalism. But the claim that all consumption under capitalism is unethical and that you're a utilitarian just doesn't make sense unless you have an argument to show that all commodity purchases generate negative utility.
Yep. Give me a second. Hold on.
Okay.
Dark Souls is. I'm getting my shit pushed in Dark Souls right now.
Yeah, I'm watching a little after the fact. I only really play Apex. I don't know if you fuck with FPS at all.
I actually, within my first week of playing Apex, I killed Lifted from 100 Thieves, one of the best Wraith players at the time.
Oh, are you serious? What kind of...
Yeah, actually, I have a video of it, actually. It's my first political video about Notch being a crazy transphobe. You can actually see in the video, I use a SG Scout, I think it's called, and I pop Lifted in the head 3 times. It was pretty epic.
Yeah, like, I'd be... In fact, it's interesting when you talk about crazy transphobes. I've been debating that topic a lot lately. It might be of interest to talk about that, but I don't want us to lose sight of this. So just to be clear, with the capitalism thing, you have to kind of like abandon one of these, that all consumption is unethical, or abandon utilitarianism, or have an argument that all commodity purchases generate negative utility.
So I don't think... So here's the issue, right? I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that. I don't think necessarily all consumption is bad on a base level. I think there are levels of harmful or unethical consumption that you can engage in. I think it is basically impossible to engage in any type of consumption in our current society ethically, just due to the fact that you don't really have much of a choice. Like everything that you're going to, unless you're going to go live out in the woods, like ditch all your clothes, all that stuff. Like you're going to.
Why would we think that would raise utility? Why? See, this is so. People always have. Oh, sorry.
Wait, I wasn't arguing that would raise utility.
But sorry, when you say unethical and you're a utilitarian, I hear decreases utility. When you say ethical, I hear raises utility, or at minimum doesn't decrease it. Right, so I don't think you're noticing that when you call yourself a consequentialist utilitarian, when you do that and then invoke words like ethical, that refers to your normative theory, which is utilitarianism. So you can't say stuff like, I'm a utilitarian and all consumption under capitalism is unethical, but I don't have an argument that all consumption generates negative utility. Right? You could say something, if you want me to just help you with something here that might preserve the kind of view you're trying to get at, you might say that you think that the state of affairs right now is suboptimal and it would be better under socialism, right? I'm not convinced of that, but you could hold that position reasonably and come up with arguments for it. But when you actually say that commodity purchases are unethical, you're saying that they decrease utility, and that's where you require an argument and someone can push on you.
Okay, so more or less what I was trying to get at is that I think I agree with you that the current position that we're in, like our current society or the way that we consume stuff, is suboptimal and not close to where I would like it to be, where I think we would have the most, like, where human happiness would be maximized.
Sure.
But that's why I think it's like better to buy from a co-op, for example, than from like a sweatshop, right? I think there's like less human suffering behind the creation of what you're making, right?
Now,
you're not
can I just reply to that just before you go through further on that? So now I don't know what the argument is for that. That could totally be the case. I haven't explored it, but that's no longer committing to the view that it's actually unethical to buy from the sweatshop, right?
Well, it like depends on a case-by-case basis. If it wasn't unethical, if you could demonstrate to me that it's actually not...
Wait, but you said it was categorically unethical.
Wait. If you can demonstrate to me, because this is how I like come to a conclusion on things like this. If it can be demonstrated that generally speaking, or in any particular scenario, it can be case-by-case basis. Like, hey, for this example, here's a family. They're working at this sweatshop. Yeah, they're exploited. Yeah, it's kind of shitty, but they have nowhere else to go. There is no other opportunity for them.
Sorry, that doesn't have to be that far.
If you were to support the sweatshop, then they wouldn't have a job anymore. If you could demonstrate that was the case, no, even if it wasn't that bad, even if it wasn't that bad, even if it wasn't that crazy, it just
has to be the alternative.
If you could demonstrate,
the alternative just has to be not as good.
I'm just using an example. Yeah. If you could demonstrate to me that the alternative is worse, then I'll be like, yeah, probably, it's okay. That's why I'm in favor of voting for Biden over Trump, because even though Biden sucks, I don't like him, he's definitely going to be better than Trump, and it's lesser of two evils situation. Now
I appreciate that you're trying to put the burden of proof on me, but if you can't prove your point, you should be agnostic, which still doesn't ground you to say all consumption under capitalism is unethical, right?
Hold on a second. Hey, chat, how the fuck do I get the thing to go to the DLC area? I killed the Hydra. I have Dusk's ring. I killed the little crystal dude, and nothing happened. Do I have to like leave the game and re-enter it or something? Get to kill the gold one? Where's the gold one? Is it back where the Hydra was? Go back to the lake. Okay. All right. Never mind. Sorry. What were you saying?
No, that's totally fine. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. So I appreciate the move that you kind of are trying to make there. Which move isn't to say you're doing anything shiesty. I'm sure you're not trying to be dishonest, but there is something that doesn't quite work about that, right? You're saying unless I can establish that it increases utility or that things are better with them being there, then you're still going to say it's unethical. But there's a problem, right? Unless you can establish that it decreases utility, at minimum, you should be agnostic. You shouldn't be making the claim that it is unethical to make a commodity purchase.
So my position is that generally speaking, I feel it's been demonstrated that it's usually like pretty bad to work in a sweatshop, and there's been lots of scenarios.
So Xander, problem.
Okay, go ahead.
Problem.
Yeah,
it's we're not disagreeing that it's bad to work in a sweatshop. No,
okay.
That's not the contention. What you would have to demonstrate is that the alternative is worse, and it always worse. If you want to say all commodity purchases are unethical, so we're not disagreeing that it is suboptimal. We agree about that. We're disagreeing about the further claim you're making that it's unethical to buy from the sweatshop, which is to say, as a utilitarian, that it decreases utility to buy from a sweatshop.
All right. So when we talk about unethical, when I say it's unethical or there is no unethical consumption under capitalism, let's try to let me what's the word I'm looking for?
Qualify.
Qualify? Is that the word I'm thinking of? I'm not sure. Let me go more into detail on that, right?
Sure.
So when I say it's unethical, I think that how bad an action is, to simplify it, can range, right? Like it can be, killing somebody is probably bad, but killing somebody and then eating a baby is probably like a bit worse, right? So while I do think that basically having to work in a sweatshop no matter what is pretty bad. But if the situation is worse, then I'm willing to like say, okay, yeah, then it's probably okay for things to remain that way until we can do something about that, right? To make the situation better, the alternative better. So don't get me wrong. There's scenarios where that may not be the case. When people say no ethical consumption under capitalism, the argument is, or the meaning behind the slogan is that there will always be, at least under capitalism, could happen under socialism, I don't know, ideally not. Under capitalism, there's always going to be some level of bad being like, you know, exploitation, harm, all that, behind any product that you consume under capitalism. All you can do is work to minimize the amount of harm that is done, or that was caused to create the products that you're consuming.
Okay, so just to be clear, because this is like the pickle on your view. It's the combination of the statement, all consumption under capitalism is unethical, and utilitarianism. And then the absence of an argument that utility is always decreased by a commodity purchase. That's
I should clarify. I'm not even 100% sure if I'm a utilitarian. I'm gonna have to look into that before.
Okay.
Before I'd say like you said what you described it. I was like, okay, that sounds kind of cool. But like, I'm not 100%. Like, I wouldn't like die on the hill that I'm a utilitarian. I haven't thought about it.
Now that's fine. You can get out of the pickle by either abandoning the claim that it's always unethical, having an argument that it always decreases utility, or abandoning utilitarianism. So any of those can get you out.
I'm not even trying to get out of any pickle. I'm just saying that like I haven't put thought into what my political or what my philosophical what's the word? Philosophical.
This is a normative ethic. That's the word.
Or normative ethic. Yeah, I haven't like put any thought into that. You just defined it, and I said, okay, that kind of sounds good. Like, I mean, that was the closest.
That's fine.
To what I believe that you said. So I mean, like, yeah.
Now we get into a different problem if you say you're not sure what your normative ethic is, though, because then it's just not even clear what you're saying anymore when you say that something is unethical. We just don't even know what that means now.
I mean, my ethics are based around maximizing human happiness. That's my end goal.
That sounds like utilitarianism again.
I mean, if that's what utilitarianism is, I could swear that's not quite it, or a reductive, or a very like reductive version of it, right?
Utilitarianism is that we're trying to maximize utility, and utility is usually cashed out either as hedonic utility, which is like states like happiness that we want to maximize, states like suffering that we want to decrease, or preference utility, which is just we want to maximize how many people get to realize their preferences. And it said, just forget about preference utilitarianism, because you keep talking about happiness and suffering.
Yeah, preference utilitarianism is definitely not what I am, because I don't want Nazis to be like, I'm not trying to make it so that like Nazis can be happy in society, because the way they get their happy is by killing those that they, you know.
You might not like hedonic util either, though, because like I would take it just based on like you're probably a big feminist, right? Like, which I mean,
I generally like pretty egalitarian, yeah.
Yeah, like I support the general values there also. But, I mean, you would have to say things if you're, like, a utilitarian. You'd have to take views like, if the rapist gets more pleasure than the victim gets suffering, then it's ethical to rape, right? And
yeah.
I think it's an oof, too. Utilitarians will, like, I'm sure if there's philosophy people in your chat, I'm sure there's utilitarians saying shit like, oh, you know, ask yourselves being stupid, it's not bad, it's good if the rape, you know, raises utility or whatever. But yeah, I think that to me that looks like a really unpalatable consequence, and it sounded like you had a similar reaction.
I really doubt there's anybody in my chat that would say that, but I don't know much about like utilitarian, all that shit.
Yeah. So here's basically what happened, right? All consumption under capitalism is unethical, plus you're a utilitarian, gets you in this pickle of you need an argument to show that all commodity purchases lower utility. Now, you can get out of that in three ways, right? You can either have the argument to show that all commodity purchases generate negative utility, or you can abandon utilitarianism, which I understand you're not some super committed utilitarian. I'm not trying to make it out that way. You can abandon utilitarianism, or you can abandon the claim about unethical consumption. Now, if you take the road of abandoning utilitarianism, then sure, you're out of that puzzle, but now we're into a different puzzle, which is, what do you even mean now when you say something's unethical? And side question, are you hating this philosophy conversation, or do you find this kind of informative? I think it seems useful, personally, to hash these things out.
It can be a little bit frustrating, but overall I think it's kind of like it's frustrating in a fun way, because I do like as annoying as it is to think about philosophy for me, it is like interesting, right? Like, I mean, it's probably worth knowing stuff about philosophy, so it's kind of fascinating, I guess.
Sure. Okay. All right. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't want to eat up all your time. Do you want to keep going, or you want to get back to your streaming?
We should probably wrap it up. But can I give my overall outlook on these issues? Like just like my no even if it's like logically inconsistent or anything like that. Just like my reasoning for why I believe what I do.
Sure. Can I get a closing statement after you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So my goal at the end of the day is to try and maximize human happiness and minimize suffering, as you said before, kind of utilitarian, right? But in a very specific way, right? Like, I don't want Nazis to have, even if there are more Nazis than there are like trans people in existence, for example, I wouldn't be okay with Nazis getting their happiness by killing trans people or killing black people or anything like that. I wouldn't be okay with that. I think there's some level where it's probably not okay to grant happiness to others if it is limiting the happiness of some people that I think hold views that I don't like, right? Or whatever. You know, you get what I'm getting at here, right? So
yeah, I do.
More or less, I'm trying to, vaguely speaking, broadly speaking, make the world a better place. And I think the way that we can do that is by trying to encourage people to hold views that are more congruent with those that may lead to a society like that. Anything from convincing people maybe they should be vegan, which I'm already convinced of that. I'm going to become vegan whenever I have the opportunity, probably once I'm in California. Convincing people not to be racist, convincing people not to be Nazis, things like that.
You need any help with that, we have a whole server of resources to help you, but please continue.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna my girlfriend is vegetarian, and I'm moving in with her in California pretty soon, so I might just try veganism, and if I like it, I'll probably stick with it because I think it's probably. I'm not gonna be like a vegan bro and tell everybody to be vegan. Don't worry, chat. But I might just do that and just have that be my lifestyle. I mean, I can still eat.
Really should, man.
If I can still eat fries from Five Guys, they're potatoes made with peanut oil. Okay, I love that shit. Then I'm fine being a vegan. That's basically the only thing I would really miss. What was I saying? Yeah, trying to advocate for beliefs that are good, and that's what I try to do. And I haven't really been in the whole philosophical, political scene for too long. I've been doing this for about a year, and I don't really talk about politics and all that. And one thing that I've been trying my best to do is to have the most logical thought process possible, or to try to pull my opinions on topics from reality, right? Like if someone can substantiate their belief with a study or anything like that, or there's some consensus among experts on a particular issue, I'm probably going to try to make my opinions line up with that issue as much as possible without compromising my morality, right? Like, for example, trans people, their validity seems to be backed up by a plurality of data. That's why I advocate for the well-being of trans people. On top of it, sort of bolstering my morality, like the world that I would like to see. So more or less, that's basically how I go about things. And as for our discussion, I've had a good time with it. I can understand why a lot of people find debating you or discussing things with you pretty frustrating, because you get really into the nitty gritty of the political discussions, and it can be a little bit frustrating. But personally, that's what I'm in for. I like that. It was a fun discussion, and I think I learned a lot about philosophical frameworks. Is that the right word? I know nothing about philosophy.
Yeah, good, close enough. Yeah.
Okay. I think I learned a good amount. I think it was a good time.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, I came in here not really knowing who you are or what you do. I still really don't, but my read is that you seem like a well-intentioned guy trying to do good. So, I'm all for that. And I think with one thing I really want to encourage is don't go and hyper commit to positions just to be consistent or just to please your audience. Like, if your audience is going to give you shit for being vegan or promoting veganism, you wouldn't cuck to them on trans issues. Don't cuck to them on animal issues. And don't feel that you have to stick to some crazy position about holocausting disabled people on a moon base just because that was how you found your way to something consistent to get out of the vegan puzzle, right? Really consider what your values are and if you really support that, and reflect on it. And with respect to all the political stuff and the ethical stuff, I mean, I'm sure you know a good bit more about me than me about politics. I don't pay that much attention to politics, but ethics are important for having political discussions. There aren't going to be a whole lot of right-wingers who you're going to talk to who are going to know how to push you down into the ethical stuff, but I can sense a bit of discomfort on your part when you get dragged into that territory. So it's worth knowing how to deal with it. I give Destiny credit here because although he should do more, he should be learning formal logic, he should be getting a better grasp on some of these philosophy concepts. The fact that he's sought some level of grounding in philosophy and, maybe to some minor degree in logic, that obviously really helps him and allows him to get under people's arguments in a way that a lot of the other debaters can't. So if you want to learn more philosophy or logic, we're always happy to help out. And if you want any resources going vegan, you can always come by our server, or alternatively, there's Challenge 22 online, which gives you recipes. Their registered dietitians will help you eat healthy. And other than that, great conversation. And if you want to talk again, you can just buzz me on Discord. So yeah, nice chat.
Oh yeah, it's been a good time. Have a good one, my dude.
Yeah, man, keep well.